What's up, Visionary? I am Clee Davis, your vision actualization mentor, back with another episode to help you break down your vision building barriers. Today, we are diving into a vision story that I think we all can relate to at some point in our lives. Our guest on the show today is Alexandra Arnold. Alexandra is a young and thriving real estate agent. I brought Lexi on the show. I'm going to call her Lexi because that's what everyone calls her. I brought Lexi on the show to dive into another vision story and hear her experience in building the vision she is living at this point in her life and career. I'm going to start having more guests on the show to simply just share their stories because I know some of the biggest aha moments I've had in my life have come from learning from someone else's story. So we covered lots of topics in this episode, and some of those things are reframing your mindset on your journey. Others are talking about the grind that no one really likes to talk about. Others include the basics of real estate deals, finding clarity in your vision, the pros of being a minority in your industry, trusting your gut, and what builds confidence. So I'm super excited to get into this episode with Lexi Arnold, and I think you'll be able to definitely relate to some of the things she says and also learn some things along the way. So, Nexa, our visionary profile, please.
Loading. Visionary profile. Alexandra Arnold. Hometown, Washington, D.C. Occupation, real estate agent, speaker, influencer. Billboard quote: trust your gut. For weekly visionary value, subscribe to the show. Enjoy.
The journey of my life has just been interesting like that, in terms of I've always kind of followed my gut to kind of lead me to the next phase. And ironically, the first job I ever had was in real estate because at 13, because my dad is a real estate broker. And he's been in the business for over 30 years now. So when I was young, I've always been the type of person to want to make my own money, want to work. So I begged my dad to work at his office. This was probably, I don't know what year, how old or what year it was when I was 13. But of course, that's below the age to give somebody a job.
Yeah.
So he just let me work under the table. So he gave me this makeshift job. I was this secretary at his front desk, and he would just kind of pay me under the table, and he just made up stuff for me to do, copy papers or bring people water or help. And I remember thinking then I would never want to be in real estate because that's what I thought real estate was from that perspective. I didn't see what all the agents were doing or what he was doing as a broker. I just saw me getting water for them or making copies of papers for them. And so I was I would never want to do that because that's what I thought real estate was, a 9 to 5. And moving on, after that, of course, when I went into high school, I really just kind of fell in love with religion and God. And so my favorite subject was religion. And then I also liked English. I like to write, I love to speak. And so they said, well, when you go to college, just major in whatever your favorite subjects are. My favorite subjects were religion and English.
Okay.
And I didn't have any plans for what to do with them. I just wanted to go to school and major in something that I enjoyed. And I always say that now I feel having that theological background, because I never wanted to be a pastor or anything, just kind of served as the foundation for my life. I'm always going to need God. I'm always going to need to know the source of how to live my life. And so I just kind of use that as a foundation for that. So fast forward to after school, when we were talking about this earlier, I worked at the radio station at Oakwood, fell in love with that. So after I graduated, I got a job at Hope Channel, and I was producing and doing stuff there for a few years, doing a lot of social media and producing some of their shows with them. And I was you know what, I can't do this. I don't like working for somebody else. So randomly, I started shadowing my dad. I worked again under the table for him for a couple years, doing what's called bird dogging in real estate, helping him find deals.
Okay.
He would pay me for that. And then when I started getting money, I was whoa, I can make a lot of money doing this. Let me see if I can do this full time. That's how I got into it.
And how long did you work at Hope Channel?
I worked at Hope Channel for 2 years.
For 2 years. So that was straight out of college?
Yes, I think so. So how did that work out? Right after college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I had a best friend of mine, her mom, again, just the transition of real estate, owned a property management company, and she managed senior citizens buildings. So she let me work there as like a admin there. So I was like doing secretarial stuff for a few years. And then one day I had met someone from the Hope Channel. I was like, let me just, I have a background in this. Like, I would like to work for you. And they gave me a job. So I started interning there. I interned there. And that intern turned into a job. So I was working both jobs. Like, I would, in the morning time from like 8 to 5, I would work at the property management office. And then from 5 p.m. to 12 o'clock at night, I would work at Hope Channel every day.
Okay,
For
cool.
2 years. Yeah.
And what was the point or the deciding factor where you're like, this is cool and all, but like I want to pursue my own thing?
So again, working at the Hope Channel, my boss, and he wasn't even my boss. He was, try to keep him anonymous. He was someone on top of me, like in terms of the authority level at the position. And I was like doing a lot of stuff for him. Like I was coming up with a lot of ideas and stuff for the show, and like really kind of like just doing a lot of the grunt work. And then one day I made a mistake on something that was really, really kind of, to me, was not like a big deal. And he like went off on me. And I was just like, what? Like, I was so crushed. I told my supervisor about it. I cried in her office, like a little, like, and she was like, it's okay. Like, you're doing a great job. And I think at that moment when I realized, you know what, I'm doing all of this work for somebody and they don't even appreciate it, like building up their career and their like life purpose and their own story, when I could be investing all this energy in myself. And I think him going off on me like that was like the light bulb moment where I was like, you know what, like I don't have to like deal with this. Like all of this work I'm putting into you, I could put into myself.
Right.
So I think that was like the little light bulb moment for me.
And then from there, you were like, was real estate what was first on your mind, or was just like, I need to do something other than this? No,
it was something a friend of mine was always telling me, like, Lexi, like, why don't you get into real estate with your dad? Like, he's like a mogul for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like,
yes, it is.
Like, he's done so much as like a black man of real estate. Like, you have all this wealth of knowledge at your feet. Like, why don't you learn from him? And I was just so resistant. Again, having that 13-year-old memory in my brain of this is what my dad does, and never really delving into what he truly did. And so it just took my friend's advice. Just talked to my dad. It was like teach me, like show me what you do. I don't know if I'll like it, but like show me. And that's when he was like, okay, great, I'll teach you the ropes. And again, let me shadow him. And that's how it started. And even like, I would even say till about last year, I still wasn't all mentally in. Like,
really?
I was still like confused. Like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, how is this, like, what good does this do for other people? Like, how is this going to help me fulfill my life's purpose? Trying to understand what my life's purpose was. Like, does this have meaning? Am I going to be able to do a lot with this? Selling somebody's house or flipping a house? Like, what does that do? So I think I wasn't all in until about last year. And I think I just kind of coasted. And I have this tendency, and I thank God, like my biggest thing, or one of the things I live by is like, to whom much is given, much is required. And I think for me, like, a lot has been given to me a lot of the times. And I just kind of coast off of that. Like, I always say, like, somebody's 100% is my 70%. And so I would just kind of coast off of that. And so I feel like I had relative success, in the beginning, but it wasn't necessarily because I was giving it my all. It was just because I had my dad as a mentor, and I did a few things right, and I had a little bit of consistency and a little bit of discipline, and that carried me through. But I think last year I just really made the mental shift, like, okay, it's time to really either do this or don't. Like, either go all in or don't.
What made you make that mental shift?
The fact that I was getting older. And I was just like, okay, like, again, following the pattern of my life, like, okay, you've been doing this for a long time. So do you love it or don't you? Can you find meaning and purpose in this? And so I really started to think about that. And the mental shift was, there's a lot of purpose in what I'm doing. Like, having this knowledge as a young Black woman, a lot of people don't have. And so that could help my community. Like, that could help other young Black women. That could help Black entrepreneurs. That could help anybody who wants to acquire wealth in this and through real estate, which is a great way to acquire wealth in this country.
Yeah.
So it's like, it has a lot of purpose. So like, give it your all. Like, you've been given this gift, whether or not it came in the most traditional package or you thought this is what you wanted to do. Like, you have this gift, so use it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to move forward, is first to make the mental shift, because like, you could be doing something and you don't find, like, you will have so much more drive and like vigor toward what you're doing if you find the purpose of what you're doing, right?
Exactly.
So like, I had a couple internships before. I worked at an environmental company and I worked at NASA and stuff. And like, I literally hated every second of it. Like, I found no purpose
in it. But now I see you have the NASA thing on your
at
laptop.
all. Yeah. So exactly. That's from, I worked at NASA, right? So, and then I moved to where I am now, and still it's an entry level position. But it's like, there's so much, like, some people look at it like, I know if they were in my position, it'd be like, dude, you just talk to people, or like, you know, you answer phones or you answer text messages or whatever. And sometimes I do get on the air, but like, that's still not part of my job description, right? But for me, I'm like, no, like, literally every time I talk to someone on the phone or through the website or whatever, like, that's their first encounter with the station. So whatever idea or perception they have from the station, it starts with me, right? That's like that's a big responsibility, right? But it's literally just the mindset shift of me making an impact.
Yes.
That makes me do my job to like the best, right? The best of my ability.
And I think if everybody kind of look at whatever they do like that.
Exactly.
You know, like, there is purpose in this, because you're purposeful. You're a purposeful being. Like, nothing, I don't believe that anything happens in life is really an accident. So kind of wherever you're planted or wherever you're placed, like, there's purpose in that. You just got to find it. Right.
And maybe from you doing the best you can at that place, it leads to like the next thing, right? Yeah. So I want to kind of get into some of because I know there are ups and downs to every vision story, right? What was like the hardest part so far? What has been the hardest part of you taking this journey into your career now?
Yeah. The uncertainty. And again, this is all before I made that complete mental shift. So, and let me backtrack. I think I said, like, I had a lot of success early on and kind of coasted on that, which is true. So there was a period where I had like a lot of success. Like, the first deal that I did with my dad, before I even had my real estate license, I made like $20,000 off of that transaction. Okay. So I'm thinking back then, how old was I? In my early 20s. Like, oh, wow, I can, like, if this didn't take no work, like, I could just do this and it'll be great. And there's this book called The Alchemist, and they talk about, like, he talks about in the book where a lot of times God will give you success early on to make you realize, like, I can do this. But then there's like a lull after that.
Yeah.
So where you're kind of like, okay, like, I thought this was so easy. I thought I could do this, but you just got that initial success to know that it was possible. But now you have to actually do the work. So there was a period where I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
And it got really, really like challenging. I had made enough money to like move out of my parents' house. So I saved up a lot, moved into like this really like nice apartment in DC. And then like the deal flow wasn't coming in no more. So I had all this money saved up, but it was dwindling down. And I don't think I've ever told anybody this other than my best friend, and my parents know this, of course. But like, once it started getting low, I wasn't going to go back to my parents' house. I had to like figure it out. Like, what am I going to do? Yeah. So there's this thing called TaskRabbit where you can like sign up for different jobs.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Heard of it. So I was like, being like my best friend, she used to call me Molly the maid, because like I would like work my real estate job as much as I could. And like with real estate, it's not like, it's entrepreneurship. It's not a traditional job. So you don't get traditional checks. Like, you could be working on one deal. And in the particular niche that I'm in, I was working on one deal for like 6 months, not seeing a return on that until whenever. So all I'm living off of is my savings, but I have bills to pay. I have to pay my rent. I'm not about to ask my parents for money because I'm big and bad. Like, I moved out by myself, you know? So I was like being Molly the maid. Like, I was cleaning people's houses. I was driving Lyft for a while, driving Uber, like doing whatever I could to like make ends meet while like still trying to like keep on this real estate grind. And it just wasn't easy.
Yeah. And because I know nothing about real estate, and I want that to change shortly. But if you could kind of like give me a background on how the whole game works with real estate. Like, I know it's something that we kind of see as like a respectable and common industry in the States, or really all over the world. But also there's such an entrepreneurial grind to it because like you're literally working for your next check. Yeah. So how does
it is entrepreneurship, and people don't always look at it like
you're right.
that.
People don't always look at it like that. Yeah.
No, it's just you are an entrepreneur in every sense of the word. Like if you do not work, you do not eat. That's it. So like once again, talking about living my best life, that comes at a cost. Like if I want to go on a vacation, that's 2 weeks or a week or however many days that I did not work towards my next paycheck. So you literally have to like plan for that, because if you don't, you're going to fall into situations like I did first early on in my career, where I thought I had all this money saved up, but then more money wasn't feeding into the pipeline. So pretty much there are different spheres. There's so many different spheres. So you have residential real estate, you have commercial real estate. I'm in residential real estate. So that means like these buildings that you see around us outside of my office, they're mostly commercial buildings, right? They're restaurants or office spaces, stores. I help on the residential side. So people for their houses they're going to move into, whether that being to buy it or to sell it, or whether it means to renovate the house. All of that I deal with that side of it. Okay. And so pretty much I have to find the deal myself. So there's so many different like lead sources that you can kind of work from, but there's so many people in real estate that they're super saturated. It's a super saturated market. So you literally have to go out and try to find a deal. And then that's how you kind of work through the process. So my particular niche are estates. So people who pass away, I work with their family members to sell that estate. So whether that means they want to sell it to an investor or they want me to list it as a realtor, I help them just liquidate the assets of that estate. So that's my particular niche. And then through that, I can either like help them sell it to an investor. That investor will flip that house. I'll help them through that process, and then they'll let me resell it for them once it's done.
Okay. And what's the return or profit like with like how much do you keep? How much does it go? Like I'm always like, okay, so I'm looking at your portfolio, right? Yeah. And I want to get into that too. At like maybe the next question down. So I'm looking at these prices. Okay, so for this, how much 800,000 or 1.3 million, whatever it is. Right. I'm like, so
like how much a slice of that do I get? Yeah. So as a real estate agent, so what you're talking about is a traditional deal. So those listings where you see in my portfolio, those are houses that I've sold. Okay. Out of that 1 million, say it's $1 million house, the real estate agent gets 6% of that commission once it's sold. Okay. But then that 6% is broken up into two people. The listing agent, the person who sold it, gets 3% typically. And then the buyer's agent, so the person who brought the buyer to the table, gets the other 3%. So there's a total 6% pie, half and half. Half goes to the listing agent, half goes to the buying agent. All right. Then after that cut, so I get 3%, right? Then my broker, so this office that you're sitting in is my broker's office. All right. They get an additional. And it depends on how many sale volumes that you do and what brokerage you're with. But typically they get 30% and you get 70%, depending on where you are in your career. As you get more sales, you get more. So pretty much out of that 6%, that 6% went down to 3%. That 3% went down to a lower percentage of that, two something percent.
Right, exactly.
And then the IRS takes another 30% of that. Right. So out of that $1 million commission check, I'm taking home, and it's still a fair number, but you're looking at it maybe about somewhere in the low to mid $20,000 range.
Right. So I just want people to like get a perception of like, you're making these sales, but you have to keep making them in order to, live.
Yeah, because what is that going to do if I only get one of those a year?
Exactly.
So it looks great, but if I got a $20,000 check in a 3 or 4 month time span, that's not making a lot of money over the course of the year. Then you also have to invest some of that money back into your business, because you have to get more deals like that. You have to market. You also might have had to give up some of your commission to make the deal work. Like, so for instance, one of the last deals I did, there were a lot of issues going on. I had to give some up like $5,000 of my commission just to help with some of the repairs in the house that maybe the seller couldn't financially take on at the time. So it looks rosy, like, oh, you're $1 million listing agent. But all that it goes into that, and doing that over and over and over again can be really challenging.
Yeah. And you referred to clarity was like a big thing, and I feel like that's like a thing that so many people struggle with. Me personally, I struggle with clarity. Like even what I was doing with the podcast, I was like, what the heck am I really doing like with this show? How did you did you have a process that you went about like to kind of like get that clarity? Did you talk to certain people? Did you do some type of self-reflection?
We talked about this too, briefly, just about like I watched tons of interviews. So that I feel like that helped, like watching other people's path to where they were and realizing that like every step led to the next step. I think that helped me with some clarity. It helped me realize like I'm in where I'm supposed to be. So like use it to the fullest. I also like read a lot. One book that I'm reading right now that I love is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Have you read that book?
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah, love that. So like reading like a lot of, I don't want to say that self-help or inspirational, but again, it's just like those types of things that help you get into a mental shift and a mental headspace. I think that's what's really helped me a lot with clarity. Yeah. On like where I am right now.
And being, I don't know what the landscape looks like in real estate or I know entrepreneurship kind of what it looks like, but being an African American woman in the workforce, doing your thing. Has that had certain challenges, or how's it been in that process?
So again, like being even in this office space, I'm sure when you walked in, like you didn't see that many black faces in here, and you definitely didn't see any girls that look like me, like any black girls. So you didn't see anybody my age. You didn't see anybody who looks like me. So you already know what the type of impact that has, like in the workspace in general. Like that's something that we talk about as a community all the time. But I think it has its pros and its cons. The pro is that like if people who look like me want to buy a house or want to sell their house, they're going to come to me because they can relate to me. Yeah. Right. So that's been a plus. But I've also had people tell me, like even in like here, like in this office, like, oh, how did you get that listing? Like, did you steal it? Like somebody said that to me. Or the other day I was walking through the hallway. I was actually in this room to do a settlement for one of my clients. And he said to me, oh, are you just like, what are you doing here today? Like, are you filling in? He asked me, was I filling in for the agent?
This was the client?
No, this was somebody, a fellow coworker in this office. What? Another agent. He said, are you filling in for an agent? Like, what are you doing here today? It's like, no, this is actually my settlement. Like, just closed on the property. He was like, what? It's like, yeah. Wow. So, I mean, that type of stuff, it still happens. And I don't even realize that at the time. Like, yo, that was kind of like, that was a little undercover, like, a little bit of covert racism there in a way, or whatever, sexism, whatever you want to call it. So like, yeah, that's definitely had its challenges, but it's also had its blessings because again, I'm able to help people that look like me and people who don't, but it also gives me a foot in the door for people who do.
Cool. Yeah. And this kind of goes into what we were talking about before as well. And my parking spot expires in 15 minutes. So I had to put more time on that.
They usually don't give too many tickets around here. I
have a bad taste in my mouth from DC, man. DC doesn't play any games with the parking stuff. Somehow I always like,
well, that's a lie. Sometimes I luck up, sometimes I don't. But I haven't gotten a ticket around here, so let's hopefully
DC
some of that luck
gets me every time. I'm just like, this is crazy. Anyway, following your personal brand, you have a great personal brand.
Thank you. Like, I'm really working on it now.
Right.
Once again, it's one of those things. I'm like, I just hired a social media person to kind of help me like fine tune it. Yeah. Because right now, again, like I think if you look at my page right now, it's curated enough. It's like, okay, what is she? Like, she an influencer? You dig a little bit lower. You're like, oh, she's in real estate. Okay. But I needed to like be clear, like become like, this is what she does. Right. So I need to kind of like define that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be more consistent because I'm not consistent.
Yeah. Like I was like, wow, this is really good. Like even with your stories, with what you do with your houses and stuff. And then also you're not just a real estate agent. You're kind of like an inspirational type of person, and like somebody people could look up to and things like that. And I see like you get invited to a couple of events and stuff to help other people like yourself get into this space and things like that. So I'm like, wow, she's really doing this thing. But like, how are you more? So how are you more intentional about? Because people are like, I don't even know how to build. Like, what is my personal brand? Like, I'm not a real estate agent, or I'm not this or that. And it's like, how do I build that? So how do you go about it?
I think it's just kind of going back, and it's something I'm still learning. And like, once again, like listening to podcasts like yours or reading stuff. But I think the crux is to see where you can meet other, like, what's the shared bond between like you and the people who follow you, and what is it currently, and what is it that you want it to be. And so that's the kind of direction that you're kind of moving in with like everything you post and the intention behind it. So for me, I'm glad you saw that. It's inspiration, not just for somebody who's in real estate, but for an entrepreneur in general, or somebody who's like in their like regular job. Like, how can I connect with them by what I say through my journey? So my journey is real estate, but how can the things that I'm learning, how can they also relate to you? And so like, that's what I am trying to inspire other people on their entrepreneurship journeys through my experience. And maybe they can like find some type of like correlation and relate. But then also I'm just trying to be authentic as much as I can. Like, cause I don't want to be preachy. Like, yes, I'm a real estate agent, but that's not the whole totality of who I am. We're all multifaceted. So I'm not going to put up a picture of a house like all the time. I'm gonna talk about it in my stories, but rarely are you going to see like me like at a house or something like that. I'm not that agent who's like, come buy a house for me. Like, to me, that's kind of a little bit corny. So I'm just trying to find a way to do both. Like, let people know what I do so I can get business through my social media, which is why I'm trying to rebrand now, but not do it in a way that's preachy. Like, I want you to come and feel like, you know, she's doing this, but something about what she said makes me feel like what I'm doing, I can do too. Yeah.
I think that's really important. And I was like, when I was looking at it, I was like, I would definitely buy a house from her.
Good.
So, and it wasn't because of your pay. Well, it had to do with your page, but it also had to do with like, I got to see who you were as a person. And I think that's really important for like people not like, oh, I'm going to start posting quotes and inspirational things like, but that doesn't show who you are. Right. So like,
and it's still something I'm trying to like dance with, like figure it out. Cause I think that has its place too. And like a lot of the accounts that are like really killing it, especially like who I look up to and like look at as a source of like goals, they're doing that well. Like, so they like they may do a quote, but in the quote it'll have a picture of them with it. So you get both. Like you're getting that knowledge, but you're also getting them. So I just got to kind of figure out how to do that. Yeah,
it's something that takes time. Like people, I don't want them to feel like, oh, well, if I start doing this, then this will happen. Like it takes time for you to like figure out, because you're still finding clarity on like exactly.
And I don't know if you ever figure it out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
you never really figured it out.
On the way here, I was listening to this something from Oprah. It was it wasn't a podcast. It was something I was listening to on YouTube of her speaking, and that's what she was saying. She's like, the moment where you kind of feel like there's no more growth or there's nothing to be learned from this place, that's when you know it's time to move on to the next thing. Yeah. So you're never going to get to a point of arrival. It's just all about the climb.
Yeah. And that's really what Build Your Vision is. It's not called like, you know, Achieve Your Vision. Or I said that in the episode. I was like, it's literally called Build Your, like you're just building to the next point. Yeah. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing
next
in the next 5 years, next even 3 years. Yeah. And that's perfectly fine, because how I've gotten here, I was literally just taking the next step. Right. So,
and doing your best with where you are.
Yeah, exactly. And for the person who has this thing in their mind, and everyone does, like if I could just, if life were like this, I would be Gucci, like I would be straight. Yeah. But they don't know the first step to take to get there. What will be the advice or the, you know, step you would give them? Like, this is what you really need to find first in order to move forward.
Discipline. Maybe because I feel like that's what I need.
Yeah, if that's what it is.
Yeah, I feel like that's what I need. Like doing the same thing over and over, like taking steps toward that goal every day without fail. Is what I need to do that. Because I already know that it's possible. It's just, it's me. I am what's standing between the goal and where I am right now.
Yeah. And then, so the next question I'm going to ask, just because it's the natural thing for me, if I were listening, and I always think about, okay, if I were listening to the podcast, what would
you say?
What would I be thinking? So I'd be like, all right, discipline. Okay,
yeah.
All right, so how do
what does that mean? I need to wake up every day at 5 a.m. I don't do that. Okay. I have outside of real estate, there are a lot of other like small, I wouldn't say smaller, but there are other there are other entrepreneurship like endeavors that I like have goals and plans for. So I need to touch that every day. Like not just the real estate side, but I need to touch everything that I want to do every day. Yeah, just do that consistently. So wake up 5 a.m., have a schedule that I stick by, and touch every one of my goals every day. I think that would get me to where I want to be a lot faster.
Right. So discipline in your pursuit of what you are trying to do.
Your organization.
Okay. And what and
knowledge too. Like so like acquiring as much of that as I can.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether that's reading, listening to an audiobook, podcast, talking to somebody, like taking someone who is where I want to be out to lunch and just like, like pour into me. Teaming up with the right amount of people, like networking, reaching out to as many people as I can, just acquiring a knowledge and wealth, and then networking with people too. Like, think that it's also all about who you know. So that helps get you to the goal a lot quicker too.
And I love asking this question because people always amaze me with their answers.
Okay.
So if you had a billboard and everyone who drove by on this street could see the billboard, what would be the message that that Lexi would want them to hear? Like, what would be on your billboard?
Follow your gut.
Follow your gut.
There's never been one time in my life where it steered me wrong. And not just when it comes to personal things, like when it comes to business too. I think it steers you, like you always have an internal compass in terms of like where you need to be, or like maybe who you should reach out to, or what the next book you should read or something. Like I feel like God, or whatever people call like the mechanisms by which we receive insight, the universe, whatever, like always gives you like these signs all day, every day. And you just got to kind of follow them. So I would just say kind of follow your gut in terms of, I think it tells you like, gives you clarity in terms of like what your purpose really is. Like if you had to really sit with yourself, like for like maybe just 10 minutes and just take some time to really think about like, what am I here to do? Like for me, it's God. And we were saying like for other people, it could be the universe, whatever you want to call it. But they're like signs that are constantly in your face all day that are really guiding you and telling you this is what you need to do. This is the person that you need to connect with. This is the conversation that you should just maybe linger and talk to this person a little bit longer. Like there are so many things that we come into contact with on a daily basis that just give us guidance. And I would just like tune into that voice a little bit more. And when it comes to aligning that with your purpose, just kind of taking like those still quiet moments, like even on a daily basis, to really like align yourself with what your gut is telling you about where you're supposed to be and like what you're supposed to be doing. And it doesn't always stay the same. I feel like for different seasons in your life, you'll get like different hunches and feelings and different guidance on where you should be. But like the answer to me is like always there. You just got to kind of listen to it and follow it, not just in your personal life, but in your career too.
And what has been the most rewarding part about you following your gut and going to build your vision for yourself, not anyone else, but for yourself? What's been the most rewarding part?
Self-confidence.
Oh, okay.
I would say. I was going to say freedom. Like that was my first hunch. Like freedom. Like I feel like, I call my own shots. Like I can go on vacation when I want to and, kind of live, like come into work when I want to come into work or whatever. Like I don't have to answer to anybody. But I would really just say self-confidence to see that something that to me was so unattainable, like if it's a super hard deal that I didn't think was going to happen, and then to get from the point of it completely about to fall apart to seeing it like at the finish line at the closing table where everybody's happy, like it gives me confidence that like I can really do whatever I put my mind to, and that again it's just all like a mental game. Like if I can put in my brain that I can accomplish whatever is put before me, then I can. And so like each little hurdle that I get through in this career that people think is super easy because they watch like a real estate show and they see it all done in an hour. Yeah. It's not. And you're dealing with personalities on a daily basis. I'm not a super people person either. So that's hard, like trying to navigate that and, have great customer service, with all of my clients and still try to keep my sanity. And like, also you're dealing with like, this is like, we talked about, like $1 million listings, like that's a lot of money on the table. It's not my money, but I am the liaison between the buyer and the seller to get this done. And so I'm dealing with their money. So there's a lot of emotions involved. Like that's a lot to kind of take on when I don't have a banking background or a background in finances. So having to navigate all these things, learning new things every day just to get me from point A to point B, like it just boosts my confidence so much every transaction. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. Like, yo, like, with God's help, like I can do anything that I put my mind to, and then hopefully helping other people to see that they can do the same thing too.
Yeah, I think the biggest element in confidence, and I did an episode on how to have more confidence. Yeah, it's literally just doing what you said you were going to do. I feel like that's the biggest confidence. If you say you're going to work out and you work out, your confidence is automatically up. If you say you're going to close this deal and you close the deal, your confidence, and then if you do that over and over, it starts to build and accumulate, and then not to throw shade on anybody else, but some people aren't doing that. Yeah. So you're like, I have a step, over. If I'm waking up at 5 a.m., you don't know, but I'm pretty sure you didn't get up at 5 a.m. So that confidence of doing that over and over and over, it's just, and it goes forward into the next thing, and the next thing, and next thing. Now you have more confidence going into that deal. Or whatever.
Because there again, like no situation. I don't know if it's like this for you from in your field, but like in real estate, every deal is different. So each time, like you're navigating a whole new scenario. But still, whatever skill sets you learned from the previous deal, even though it may be completely different in this deal, again, that confidence you can carry over of, this may not look the same. It might be a problem also in a whole completely different package, but I know how to overcome problems. Right. And so just having that in the back of your head, problem may look different. It probably is different, but regardless of the problem, like I can overcome it. Yeah.
Put in the reps. Just overcoming obstacles.
Yeah. Over and over again. Yeah. It's dope.
That's
it's
good.
Hard though.
It's good. It's good.
It's hard, but it's super, super rewarding. So I don't know.
Thank you, Lexi, for coming on the show. What Lexi is doing with her lifestyle, her brand, and her career is absolutely amazing. You guys should also follow her on Instagram. Like her page and feed aesthetic is just awesome. So I'm going to link to her Instagram page below as well. The biggest takeaway I got from the conversation I had with Lexi was to just take pride in the fact that your journey is different and to trust your gut. Depend on your intuition and wisdom from God for the next step in your journey. Just be patient. Everything is going to be okay. Everyone has their own route to success. And I hope you harp on that until we get into our next episode next week. If you were inspired by this episode, related to it at any point in the recording, I just ask that you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts so that we can get this message and brand and vision out to more people who need this type of content. I will greatly appreciate it. I'm going to link to that as well in the show notes. Just click one button and then you could get straight to the review page. All you got to do is tap 5 stars or 4 stars or 3 stars, whatever you want to do. But 5 stars would be nice on my review page, and I will greatly appreciate it. The link is in the show notes. All right, guys, I will talk to you next week. As always, until then, build your vision every single day. Peace.
Hey guys, Clee here. Thanks so much for listening to the Build Your Vision podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would think you did if you stayed all the way to the end. The best thing that you could do to help support this show is by sharing it with somebody. By you just taking a few seconds to recommend this show to somebody, you are making a huge impact, not only on the success of this show, but possibly on that person's life.